Here she comes! Hey, Poodle! Here she comes!
Walt Disney is considered by many to be one of the most successful people in the history of the world, having brought us the creation of feature-length animated films and, of course, the one and only Disneyland. And although the entrepreneur and innovator faced a number of challenges on his way to the top, he persevered through them all in a fit of inspiration. But what do we really know about the story of Mr. Walt Disney, and can we learn anything from his harrowing journey? Well, whether you're a fan of the Walt Disney Company or just want to know more about the man who influenced our childhoods, stay right where you are, as we're about to explore the most inspiring success story of Walt Disney. So strap yourselves in and get ready for a trip through time, as things are about to get historical. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the new videos we post. Where it all began. Rather than getting stuck in useless information like where and when the man was born, let's pick things up in 1999 when Walt Disney was only 18 years old. With the dream of becoming an artist, Walt Disney decided to join the Pesman Rubin Commercial Art Studio as a commercial artist, where he earned enough money to afford a pretty cushy lifestyle. Everything from fashionable clothes to nightly trips to movie houses was within his budget at this time, which is saying quite a bit for a young man at the age of 18. Suffice it to say, life was going well for him. But then the Great Depression of 1921 struck, which caused his career to come to a screeching halt. This led to a decline in the revenue of Pesman Rubin, which essentially caused the art studio to have to lay Walt Disney off. He was a young man who had just had his life turned upside down, now cursed with the need to find a job at one of the most inopportune times that history has ever presented us with. This is when Walt's father came to him with a plan. Rather than wasting the rest of his days trying to find a job as an artist in a market that had come to a halt due to the Depression, he wanted Walt to work for him in his jelly factory. He was at a crossroads in his life and described the moment by saying, "How you react today to an unpleasant event, how you experience the event determines what you will become. More than happiness, sometimes unhappiness propels us, furnishes us with an adequate energy, forces us to have unwavering attention in the desired direction." And just like that, Walt Disney decided to forego the opportunity of working for his father, channeling all his energy into the creation of his own company, which he decided to call Laugh-O-Gram, the start of something new. Adequately built from the ground up, Laugh-O-Gram started to do pretty well. In fact, because of the success of the company, Walt ended up being a bit of a celebrity in a small town of Marceline, Missouri. The company had been able to keep the lights on during the Depression, after all, and he obtained a contract for 6 animated shows from a local theater that he was about to animate and produce. After borrowing enough money to pay for the office and project equipment, he and his team worked tirelessly for no pay. And just as he was about to finish the animations, the distributors at the time decided to back out of the project. It would seem the animation wasn't considered to be innovative enough to keep the interest of investors. Rather than feeling deterred once more, Walt sat down and came up with the revolutionary idea of inserting the footage of a real girl into the animation, which is what essentially gave the rise to the creation of Alice in Wonderland. Borrowing money once more to pay the office rent, Walt worked like crazy to shoot and animate Alice properly, sleeping in the studio when he had time available because he couldn't afford at home. Although his company ended up finishing Alice in Wonderland, he was unable to secure a distributor soon enough to prevent the company from heading into bankruptcy. Clearly upset by the way things had ended, Walt chose to move to Los Angeles, where his dreams of publishing the Alice cartoon was still alive. The family team up. After knocking on door after door in Los Angeles, Walt found that movie studios just weren't interested in any of his ideas. His brother Roy was also living in LA at the time as a vacuum salesman and tried to convince Walt to leave his dream behind. The movie business apparently had no future, after all. Once more, Walt decided to take his future into his own hands by refusing to sell vacuum cleaners with his brother. Instead, he continued to knock on doors until Walt was called by Mrs. Winkler, who, after watching his Alice animation, a total of 6 episodes for her. Was this the turnaround he needed? Not needing more than this to jump at his dream once more, Walt established another company by the name of the Disney Brothers, citing his brother Roy as its co-founder. Their association with the Winkler studio blossomed, and the brothers were able to move to a better office, where working was a lot easier on both of them. The team that Walt spearheaded then created another character named Oswald the Rabbit, who found himself in a cartoon known as The Happier Times. The Winkler Studios director Mintz loved this cartoon so much that Walt was called on to refine it further. Things started to fall apart once again when Walt discovered that Mintz had illegally hired most of his employees and planned to make new episodes of The Happier Times using his team without Walt's help. This also led to Walt losing the rights to both of the characters of Alice and Oswald the Rabbit, which was probably the worst feeling he had experienced up until then. The influence of his father. It was at this stage that Walt thought of his father, who, after each and every failure in his business, grew more and more depressed. He promised himself himself that he and his brother would not fall into the same path of his father. Once more, he channeled all of his energy into the creation of a new character with an even smaller team of animators. This caused the birth of whom we now know to be the mascot of all Disney, the one and only Mickey Mouse. The reign of the House of Mouse. Walt and the rest of his team made a couple of Mickey Mouse episodes, but still battled to find a distributor to get them out to the world. So to set himself apart from every other animation studio at the time, Walt made the decision to add sounds to his cartoons, which had never been done before in the industry before that. After working on the concept for quite some time, the sound integration of his cartoons had been completed. Still, he battled to find a distributor, and was finally given the opportunity to play his cartoons in a local theater for 2 weeks. Suffice it to say, viewers were captivated by the cartoons, and word about Disney and his studio began to grow. In 1931, he hit a snag in his personal life when his wife miscarried their child, and his dream of becoming a father came crashing down. He also faced members of his team being swept up by rival studios, which caused him to throw himself into work once more and work on innovation. Clearly bored with the episodic formula that all cartoons abided by, Walt called his team to an auditorium, stood on stage, and acted out a story for them to complete with different range of voices and actions. People were mesmerized by his idea to make a full-length animated feature film, which had never been done before. Although the idea sounds like an incredible idea, back then Roy believed that it would lead to bankruptcy of the company once more, and banks were also hesitant about lending any more money to the venture. But once more, Walt Disney persevered, and the journey to complete Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs began. The crash of 1948. In 1948, Walt was slowly but surely approaching 50, and found that the studio had lost a lot of money in making the movies Pinocchio, Fantasia, and Bambi, since they'd all been released during the runtime of the Second World War. The company also had invested a large amount of money towards the purchasing of a 51-acre piece of land, with the intention of building a dream studio of sorts. Another Disney property, called The Song of the South, was also receiving a lot of criticism for its portrayal of racial abuse and slavery. In other words, the company was once more in a precarious situation. The final nail in his coffin during this time period was the strike of Disney employees. He couldn't believe that his own team had even turned against him, causing him to become dispirited, to say the least. He needed to jump back into work to make himself feel better once more, but making movies just wasn't doing it anymore. The new venture. After spending some time by himself, Walt decided to head to his workshop and start building his own model train set. He enjoyed making everything from scratch, and when finished and set up, the idea for Disneyland was cemented in his mind. He looked back at what he had done to the character of Alice by actually putting her inside a cartoon, and thought of himself how he could possibly do that to the general public. He wanted to create a fantasy world based on his cartoons that allowed the general public to really get to know these characters on their own terms. Once more, Roy and the rest of his family advised Walt to stay away from such a venture, which had never been done before and was, as such, incredibly risky. The studio wasn't bankrupt after all, so it's not like he had to take the risk this time. But like he always did, Walt decided to go ahead with the venture, causing Disneyland to open up for the first time in the 17th of July, 1955. The Disney Company. After persevering through some troubling times and constantly being told by everyone around him that his dreams were nothing more than dreams, Walt did what was thought to be impossible at the time. He created sound synthesized cartoons, which later took the form of full-length feature films. And then to make things even better, he created a fantasy world of his own, allowing fans of his cartoons to live them out by attending Disneyland, which nobody thought would be possible in the first place. Walt Disney clearly did the impossible. What do you think of the inspirational life of Walt Disney? Feel free to let us know in the comment section down below.